Great Spirit of creation, we live in a world where both beauty and dangers surround us. Receive our love for those impacted by and living in fear of the wildfires ravaging Colorado and the Western United States. For all the birds, animals, creatures, both great and small, who cannot find safety, shelter, food, or clean water. For fellow humans who have lost their homes, churches, community centers, and workplaces. For all beings in need of protection and healing. We send comfort and strength to all who are numb with fear and distress. Please guide those who anxiously search for missing loved ones and pets, who wait in hope to hear that they are safe. Please bless those who are grieving with peace. In the midst of disaster, we give thanks for moments of generosity, compassion, and human kindness. Help us see beauty and feel joy for all that is still right with the world. Grant tenderness, strength, and wisdom to the firefighters and emergency responders who strive for containment while rescuing those in peril. To the doctors, nurses, and emergency responders who strive for containment while while rescuing those in peril, to the doctors, nurses, and those treating the injured, to the wildlife conservationists and stewards of the earth crying for attention to protect our beautiful planet, and to all who minister to human need in this time of chaos and distress. We gather together today knowing that all is and will be well. Amen.
Oh, misty eye of the mountain below, keep careful watch of my brother's souls, and should the sky be filled with fire and smoke, keep watching over mother's sons. If this is to end in fire, then we should all burn together. Watch the flames climb high into the night, calling out, Father, oh, stand by and we big love to anybody affected by the fires right now in Colorado. And thank you so much to all the firefighters working so hard to keep the state safe. And I just pray that everybody can think of rain and that the state gets drenched in water from Mother Earth. And yes, I love you guys, and thank you so much for listening, and have a good night. Bye.
Thank you, Amanda. That was amazing, beautiful. And that's what I want to do right now. I just want us to take a little bit of time, this moment of gratitude, to send our gratitude to the firefighters, and to the animals, and to all the people who are having a hard time breathing in this valley. It's hard to breathe right now. And so I just want us to take a little bit of time following that beautiful song. Paul, wrote a song a few months ago called Sending Our Love to the World. And I just would like us to take a little bit of time to send our love and our gratitude out into the world, whether it's the fire or the pandemic or the fear or the racism. Let's just take a few deep breaths. Let's listen to this beautiful music, and let's intentionally send some love out into the world right now.
sending God's love, sending God's love. We're sending God's love to the world. And this love that we're sending is a love that's never ending. We're sending God's love to the world. I'm sending my love to the world. I'm sending my love to the world. I'm sending my love, sending my love. I'm sending my love to the world. I'm sending my love to the world. I'm sending my love to the world.
And we thank Paul and Unity for sharing that rendition of Sending Our Love to the World to us. So here we are, another week. Last week, David Hood was sharing his experiences shortly. And while he was sharing his experiences during church, shortly after that, somebody came and ripped down our Black Lives Matter banner. And I'm sure that some of you have seen this in the news. And so I have a number of thoughts as this week I also went through a number of emotions. First of all, when I saw the video, it was anger. When I saw the security footage of what happened at 1:06 p.m. last Sunday, it's a video of this man, probably in his late 20s, early 30s, who just seemed to be full of righteous anger, recording himself on his phone while he did it, as if he's proud of perpetrating an act of violence on this banner. And so, yes, I am angry, and based on that act of violence, I'm angry based on what that act of violence represents. Because that act of violence was really not about us or our church. That sign was not ripped down because we're Unitarian Universalists. That sign was ripped down as an act of violence and hate against 3 words: Black Lives Matter. 3 little words. And my guess is if it said Black Lives Disappeared, it would still be up. If it said Black Lives Exist, it would still be up. If it said Purple Lives Matter, that sign would still be up. It was torn down for 2 out of those 3 words: Black and Matter. And for some reason, this short phrase has become very threatening. The question is, why? Why are these 3 words so triggering for people? Why has the media on the far right declared an all-out war on that phrase, to the extent that there are people who now associate Black Lives Matter and all who declare it or associate with it a terrorist group? So yes, this week I'm feeling anger at the violence directed at our Black neighbors and friends. It was not directed at me. It wasn't directed at Unitarian Universalists in general. If we had a sign that said Unitarian Universalist Lives Matter, it would not have been bothered, because we were not the targets. Our Black friends and neighbors were the targets. Shortly after the banner was ripped down, the Free Press did an article about it, and soon KREX was calling for an interview, and then KKCO, and then the other stations. And the day after KREX, the segment aired, I received an email from a person who would not give their name, basically saying that what happened was wrong, but that we just don't understand Black Lives Matter or what they stand for. and how we just don't understand that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. And after I took 24 hours to think about a response as opposed to a reaction, which I talked to us about a lot, I did respond to her in a composed manner. And I'm glad I did, because it was later discovered that the person who sent this email to us is the neighbor of one of our UUCGV board members. A real breathing person, and perhaps an opening for deeper dialogue might exist. So this week I started with anger, and then sadness. Sadness that after all these years, there's still so much hate in this valley, so much hate and fear and anger in this world, and so many people who just don't understand or are unwilling to take the time to try to understand. And then the news stories went out, like I said, and I ended up feeling confused because all of a sudden the comment sections on KREX were talking about how Unitarian Universalists are a cult and how Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. And then there were a bunch of likes and comments saying, "Well done," directed at the person who tore the sign down. And I thought, who are these people? And if you're thinking, oh, here we go, she's talking about racism again, I want to clarify that no, this isn't about racism. I'm not just talking about racism again. Today, I am talking about human worth and dignity. This is about our deepest values. This is about seeing the divine light in other human beings and expressing that in our lived lives. In this period of time, it is coming out in the form of anti-racism action, because that is where the inherent worth and dignity of human beings are not being acknowledged. But I want to be clear that it's not about racism, because this isn't an ism. I am talking about how to be a full human being, how we choose to interact with the world around us, how we acknowledge the inherent worth and dignity of every person, how we live into the interconnected web of all existence. Just like when we talk about the environment, it's not about environmentalism, it's about the interconnected web of which we are all a part, and that is dying. It is about recognizing the part that is literally being burned up as we speak. It's not an ism in the form of environmentalism. Just like when we talk about LGBTQ issues, it's not about people who are gay or lesbian or transgender. It's about human beings who are being systemically devalued based on an inner expression of who they are. And that's why we won't stop talking about it. That's why we won't stop putting up the sign. That's why we have a rainbow flag on the other side of our building. Call us social justice warriors if you want, but that's not what it's about. It's about each and every one of us acknowledging the inherent worth and dignity in each and every one of the people around us. And UUs are intentionally naming, acknowledging, and seeing the marginalized groups of people who are systemically being omitted from that designation of having inherent worth and dignity. This is why we were proud to host the Peace for 2020 storytelling event in our parking lot last Friday night. This is why we invited David Hood to speak and tell us his story about living in Grand Junction last Sunday. And about 8 years ago, when we were reorganizing, we sort of disbanded our social action team. And it wasn't because we didn't value social justice. It was because there was an acknowledgement that everything we do, should be viewed through the lens of our principles of inherent worth, of interconnection, of being out there in the world. So the idea was it shouldn't be relegated to a team of 3 or 4 people to do all of these social justice work. It's our work to do collectively as the UUCGV community. And that said, we've come back around to the point where we realize that it is helpful to have a team of people who are able to sort of herd us and collectively help us stay organized and focused with social action issues and social justice issues. So if that is something that sounds inspiring to you, let me know, as I think it's time for us to get a more organized social action team up and running again. But let me be clear, today is about Black Lives Matter, but it's also about Hispanic lives mattering. And when the neo-Nazis were marching down Charlottesville with their tiki torches chanting, "Jews shall not replace us," it was Jewish lives matter. So it comes back to each one of us individually. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't think this is my cause, then you're missing the point of Unitarian Universalism, because we aren't into causes. That's not who we are, and that's not what we're about. But we most definitely are about intentionally, proudly, loudly, and publicly acknowledging the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That is our job, that is our role, and that is not a cause, ever. I'm so proud to be your minister, and I'm so proud that you trust me to be the public face of UUCGV. And in seminary, we talked about the 4 Ps of ministry, and I've shared them with you before. They talk about the pastor, the preacher, the priest, and the prophet. And I went to seminary wanting to learn how to be a pastor, the kind, safe person who people come to talk about their problems, because that's my natural inclination. But sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zones. And I understand that sometimes I have to move into being the preacher, and occasionally I have to move into being the prophet. But here's the thing, faith traditions are the same way. Our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition has its own version of pastor, preacher, priest, and prophet. Because contrary to some of the comments on the KREX comment page, UUCGV is not a cult. And I am most definitely not your cult leader. But we are a community who has covenanted together to work towards a more just world. And so, as a UUCGV community, we're all in this together. Which means as a faith community, we get to be the collective pastor, the safe place, the building acting as a beacon of light in this valley, the pastoral community that opens up our parking lot to feed people on Tuesdays. We get to be the priest, in other words, holding the space and holding the rituals through our 7 UU principles. In this respect, we also get to be the space in the community that says, we see your inherent worth. We recognize the interconnected web of which you are a part. We value the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And you are welcome here. Come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. And at UUCGV, in this valley, like it or not, we also get to be the prophets. And this is one of the gifts of being a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We get to be leaders. We get to stand at the forefront and say, Yes, we're going to make sure we are loudly and proudly flying a rainbow flag. We get to say, yes, we see that Black Lives Matter, and we will proclaim that loudly and proudly. Because the reason we know that Black Lives Matter is because we already understand on a deep theological level that all lives matter. And therefore, we are proclaiming loudly and naming the people who are not currently being valued. That is our prophetic role. And we stand up and we do that proudly. Because I keep going back to this, it's not about us. It's about understanding that it is time to heal this world. And we heal this world by healing ourselves. And we heal ourselves by finding our inner compass. And we get centered with our inner compass and our true north when we find our voice and we use it. And when we are learning how to use our voice, we are practicing the recognition and the honoring of the inherent worth and dignity of everybody around us. And we are honoring and recognizing and naming the interconnected web of which we are a part. And when we do that, the world begins to heal. So no, being intentionally anti-racist is not an external action only. It is an internal declaration of who we are and who we choose to be. And this inner practice is a spiritual practice. The good news is acknowledging and declaring the inherent worth of every person works, whether you're an agnostic or an atheist or a deeply internally spiritual person. I'm speaking to all of that today. And I have to say I'm very proud and honored to represent the Unitarian Universalist congregation at the Grand Valley as your minister. And what I want to do is I want to close today with the letter that is outside in the realtor's box explaining why UUCGV proudly displays our Black Lives Matter banner. Elizabeth and I worked together on the wording for this that we sent as a letter to the editor this week. And I haven't had the newspaper open today, but it appears that so far they have chose not to print it. But I want to share it with you today. And this is also, I want to share it because this can be a tool for all of you, our UUCGV community, to offer to your neighbors and friends if and when they ask why Black Lives Matters to us. Bill Hilty also gets credit for writing the original letter that Elizabeth and I modified and updated this week. And it's fitting that he's here in the sanctuary with us today. So here's what the letter outside says, and this is what Elizabeth and I sent to the Daily Sentinel. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Grand Valley, feel collectively that the nationwide Black Lives Matter movement is so interwoven with our Unitarian Universalist values that it is something we choose to support visibly in the form of a banner hanging outside our church. Specifically, the national issues around Black Lives Matter touch upon no less than 5 of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. When we put the banner up several years ago, there was a local Black Lives Matter Grand Junction chapter, and we also put the banner up in support of their mission statement, which reads, "We are here to hear and protect Black voices, empower people of color, and educate on racial hardships through empathy, a sharing of stories, and love. It saddens us that most of the wonderful founding members of the Black Lives Matter Grand Junction chapter, who were people of color in Grand Junction, have all left our community due to the racism they and their families experienced while living here. We fully support the recent local racial justice efforts, which have been peaceful and collaborative. Grand Junction is not a racially diverse community. We respect our excellent police force, so why hang a Black Lives Matter banner? We believe that the term Black Lives Matter is important because it is a statement from the larger dominant community, sending the message that yes, we see you, you are important to us. George Floyd was killed because he was Black. Trayvon Martin was killed because he was Black, and the list goes on and on. This is why people kneel. This is why people are protesting this summer. There is an injustice that permeates our culture, and it is more prevalent than ever in this year, 2020. Until white America can begin to acknowledge the reality that race does play a role in police shootings, until white America is able to do the soul searching that says Black Lives Matter, we are never going to get to the place where all lives matter. Many Black residents of the Grand Valley have bravely shared about specific incidents of racism that they have encountered while living here. We entreat white residents throughout the Grand Valley to listen to what they have to say and to their suggested solutions to these problems. We invite other groups to hang their own Black Lives Matter banners in solidarity with this effort. Let us work together to create a more just and inclusive community and country. We look forward to the day when this banner is no longer needed. Sincerely, Reverend Wendy Jones and Elizabeth High, Minister and Board President of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Grand Valley. Let us take a few deep breaths, enter in to the fire of commitment as we listen to the music and sing it together.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits